We're going to work with equality.
My name is Allie.
Here we are, we're live. Hello. It's me, Keegan Conner Tracy, and you may know me as this person, the Blue Fairy from Once Upon a Time, which is, of course, how I ended up here reading you a Blue Fairy-themed Pinocchio sleep story called Pinocchio and the Sleepless Cricket, which was written by Christina Yang. And it was the first story that I got the opportunity to do with Calm, and sort of the beginning of my relationship with them, which has been so wonderful and continues to this day and forward. And so happy Sunday. Welcome to my live Instagram takeover of the Calm app. And I was sort of thinking, like, what can I talk about? What can I say? And I think just by way of introduction, I was going to say, first of all, leave some comments down there and let me know where you guys are all listening and watching from. And maybe what things you use to get calm when you go to sleep. And I was going to show you a couple of mine. So one thing I love is I have this mask. My kids think it looks like a bra, which it kind of does. But I love this one. I don't know how well you can see in the light. That it has these little cups here. So it doesn't press on my eyelids when I sleep. And I really love that. I also do have the weighted one from the Gravity blanket people. It weighs about a pound. And I don't always love that one on my eyes. So I often will wear it just on my forehead. And I spray it with a little bit of something like this, which I also love. This is just, who is this? Nature Love Pillow Mist, and it's lavender and vanilla, which I love anything with vanilla. And so, you know, that little spritz around. And I have this little hand cream that I love from More. It's marshmallow. I got it when I was shooting, oh my gosh, what was I shooting? The murder mystery thing with Holly Robinson Pete, and it smelled kind of like marshmallows, and I really love it, and it just kind of makes me feel like, you know. And I have this little baby that I love, which is my little sound speaker, and I just hook it up above the bed so that I can listen to a sleep story when I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, or a podcast, or whichever things make me happy. So hopefully you guys are all settled in. As you see, I'm wearing my PJs. I have my lovely Gravity blanket, which I really, really love. If you haven't had an opportunity to try one of these, I would highly recommend it, especially if you're the kind of person who is anxious or just doesn't sleep in general. It was like a game changer for me getting this blanket. Just kind of as soon as you lay it on, you just feel like, so take a deep breath with me, and let's begin our sleep story. All right, everybody ready? Here we go. So, you are probably all familiar with the epic fairy tale of Pinocchio, the curious little puppet with a growing nose who became a real boy through the magic of the Blue Fairy. Pinocchio lived in a seaside village with his father, the master toy maker Geppetto. Hi, Tony Amendola. Having had his fill of grand adventures with donkeys and whales and the like, Pinocchio was perfectly content to remain in his little village and do all the things real little boys do. He went to school and studied all the important subjects. He did his chores at home and became an expert at tidying up. And he helped his father around the shop, learning to fix toys. Every night, Geppetto would tuck Pinocchio into his big, warm bed under a fluffy down comforter. The crickets outside would sing their rhythmic nighttime song as Geppetto read a bedtime story. As Pinocchio drifted off to sleep, he would look up at the brightest star in the sky and give thanks to the Blue Fairy who had given him the gift of life as a real child. For you see, the Blue Fairy was a wonderful fairy godmother, perhaps the very best godmother of all. She always kept a close eye on Pinocchio to make sure he was getting on well. Indeed, the fairy treated Pinocchio as her very own child. One especially warm summer night, when Pinocchio called upon the Blue Fairy for help, she floated down on a moonbeam as swiftly as she could and hid behind a friendly shadow to watch the little boy. "Oh, fairy godmother," Pinocchio pleaded into the night sky, "I no longer want to be a real boy. Things were so much easier when I was just a wooden toy who sat in a toy chest. Back then, my purpose was much more simple. Please, turn me back into a puppet again. The Blue Fairy was rather saddened to hear this confession, for she had been so proud of Pinocchio's transformation. It's not that I'm ungrateful, Godmother. There are so many things I love about being real. I love the dazzling display of the setting sun as it paints a rainbow of colors across the sky. I feel proud when I work out a difficult problem I thought I couldn't solve. And I always look forward to Father bringing me breakfast in bed on Saturday mornings. But there are other things about being a real boy that I don't like one bit. I have so many choices to make every day, like where to go and what to do, how to live, and who to become. With so many decisions, I'm scared of making the wrong one. When I was a puppet, that never happened. I think, Godmother, that I'd rather just be a regular, plain old puppet after all. At that, the Blue Fairy let out a weary sigh that even stirred the curtains on the windows. She knew what Pinocchio was going through. Waving her wand, she sent a basket of stars to dance for him in the sky. But Pinocchio was too busy wiping tears from his eyes to see it. Then she sent him a very special gift, the laughter of an elf, known to clear up even the heaviest of storm clouds. But Pinocchio was so sad about being a boy that the charming giggle drifted right by his ears into the trees. The Blue Fairy knew, as much as she wanted to help this sweet boy, it simply wasn't in her power. What he needed, he must find for himself. So with that, she blew Pinocchio a kiss of luck and leapt back into the shimmering sky. Of course, Pinocchio was rather disappointed that the Blue Fairy did not appear. But he also knew she was a very important fairy with dozens of blessings to bestow and charms to cast. He didn't want to disturb her very busy schedule, so he packed his bags right then and there and took off out the door to go look for her. Pinocchio walked and walked, not even stopping for a drink. He didn't know where exactly he was going, so he wandered along the streets of the sleeping town, which looked very different at nighttime, so deserted, so silent. There was no clippity-clop of horses, or tumble of carriage wheels, or shouts of the fish vendor. There were no warm smells of freshly baked bread, or cheerful exchanges of greeting, or ringing of church bells. The signs on the doors all read closed. And the shop windows were locked with their shades drawn tight. The cafes had taken in their bistro tables and striped umbrellas so that the sidewalks seemed wide and empty. Through the moonlight, the bumpy cobblestones cast such deep shadows that Pinocchio worried he might fall into one of them. How quiet and still a place the world would be, Pinocchio thought, if there were no people to liven it up. And just then, Pinocchio heard a single sound echoing through the night air. It was a familiar sound, yet still enticing, a natural sound, yet it seemed almost musical. Pinocchio followed the rhythmic lullaby, straining his ears to hear the crisp notes ring out in the quiet air. Soon he found himself on the path that ran along the river, and the song grew louder and louder. He knew he was getting close. At last, under a great oak tree, Pinocchio came upon the singer of this nighttime song, resting on a leaf, a tiny green creature with iridescent wings and long, thin legs. It was a friendly cricket. "Pardon me, kind cricket," Pinocchio said. "My name is Pinocchio, and I have followed your captivating melody. It made me feel so much less alone as the world sleeps." The little cricket gave a great big yawn before he replied, "Oh yes, indeed. indeed, as the world sleeps, but I certainly do not. My name is Sleepless, and I'll be here singing all night. Are you another slumberless friend? Well, not exactly, Mr. Sleepless, Pinocchio explained. It's actually way past my bedtime, but I'm on a special mission to ask the Blue Fairy to grant my wish. Oh, what serendipity, chimed Sleepless. Making nighttime pals is my specialty. You see, when I make friends, they keep me company when I can't sleep, which is pretty often. And when I can't sleep, I sing. At that, Sleepless let out such a trill of delightful notes, and Pinocchio was so captivated he accepted the offer immediately. Yes, let's keep each other company, Pinocchio agreed, and we'll find the Blue Fairy before we know it. So, Sleepless hopped on to Pinocchio's shoulder to hitch a ride. And as he rode, he sang his sleeping song to the rhythm of Pinocchio's soft, steady footsteps, left and right, left and right. He chirped along as the river sang her own sleeping song in accompaniment, gurgling and splashing along underneath the bright full moon. By and by, the sweet nighttime songs were so soothing, the tempo so relaxing, that Pinocchio fell asleep as he trotted along the riverbank. That Pinocchio practically fell asleep, as he trotted along the riverbank, for it was far past his bedtime, as we well know. So Sleepless broke the silence to help keep him awake. I wish I was as good as you at falling asleep, the cricket remarked. But why have you chosen to give up your precious sleep to search for the Blue Fairy? Pinocchio was a bit reluctant to tell his story at first, but it's no use keeping secrets from a nighttime friend. So he began. Well, I used to be just a simple wooden toy with simple wooden dreams. All I wanted, all I wished, from the rise of the sun each day to the shine of the stars at night, was to be a real, live boy. But now that I have my wish, I am a real live boy. I no longer know my purpose. I don't know what I should be doing every day, what I should be striving for. So I'm going to ask the Blue Fairy to give me a purpose or else turn me back into a puppet again. At that, Sleepless sang a note that sounded like a sigh. I understand, Pinocchio, but don't fret. You'll find your purpose. Oh, I hope you're right, Sleepless, said Pinocchio. Life would be so much easier if someone just told me my purpose. Things were so much easier when I was just a simple puppet. But just when Pinocchio was about to finish his thought, he was interrupted by an elaborate trill from the cricket. They had chanced upon a very rare sight that stopped Pinocchio right in his tracks. There, before him, grew a great bloom of white flowers that seemed to glow iridescent, sparkling like opals in the night. Goodness, look, said Pinocchio, mesmerized by the gleaming gems. Dozens of pointed ivory petals unfurled themselves under the moonlight, reaching up for the sky, delicate velvet, dancing under the radiance of the full moon. Yes, said the cricket, that is the night-blooming cerise, a flower which only blooms one night a year under the full summer moon and fades away before the sunrise. It's a sight not many have the fortune to see. Pinocchio approached the cerise flower with awe. Dear flower, proclaimed Pinocchio, yours is the most luminous beauty I have ever encountered. Might I ask, O cerise, what is your purpose? The flower shimmered as it replied, my purpose is to bloom. I see, said Pinocchio, but I have no petals to bloom. That must not be my purpose. Pinocchio thanked the cerise flower, and the two friends continued on their way toward the Blue Fairy, but the experience got Pinocchio thinking. Just think, marveled Pinocchio. I almost missed this fascinating event. I would have walked right by if you hadn't said something. Thank you, my friend. As they walked on, the river became wider, its current much stronger than it was before. The waves swished and sloshed over rocks and logs, washed over fine, fuzzy moss. White, frothy bubbles leapt up into the air. The trees were also much taller now, and there were many more of them, much closer together, so that Pinocchio often had to push the hefty branches aside to continue on his way. The path had become overgrown, sometimes only peeking out from underneath long grasses and shaggy ivies. Pinocchio felt he was certainly in the middle of nature. Inspired, he asked his new friend, "Sleepless, what would you like to ask the Blue Fairy for if you could ask her for something?" Sleepless didn't miss a beat. He knew his answer right away. "Of course, I'd ask her for the one thing that has always seemed to elude me, the power to sleep." "Oh, I dare say, I suppose there are times when it's wonderful to be awake. I've made some wonderful memories with shooting stars and comets and baby possums that only come out at night. I'm dear friends with the babbling brook, the wise owl, and the friendly fireflies, but goodness me, Pinocchio, there is nothing in all the lands, the skies, or the seas that can substitute for the healing magic of sleep." And, as if Sleepless had summoned her, a silky dash of plumage crossed Pinocchio's cheek, and overhead glided the wise old owl, asking her infinite question, "Who?" "Well, it's me, Sleepless the Cricket, dear old pal. Just you here tonight?" "Who?" the owl inquired. "Well, this here is my friend Pinocchio. He's going to get a wish from the Blue Fairy." "Who?" asked the owl yet again. The Blue Fairy," explained Pinocchio. "I'm going to ask her my purpose. If I'm going to be a real boy, I want to know what my purpose is. Do you know your purpose, O wise owl?" The owl answered again, "Who?" And without further clarification, she opened up her massive fluttering wings and flew away upon the wind. Pinocchio pondered the exchange. I suppose the wise owl is so wise because she asks so many questions. It must be her purpose to seek answers. I'm going to ask the Blue Fairy a question, so I must be on the right path." As the two buddies walked on, the river curved away from them, and they wandered deeper and deeper into the forest. A thick blanket of moss and leaves covered the forest floor, crunching and squishing underfoot. The path was completely gone now, and Pinocchio had to guess his direction as he strode on toward his destination. So Pinocchio continued walking, left and right, with Sleepless the Cricket singing his nighttime song to the beat of the footsteps, and the gentle swish of the wind blew through the leaves, the heavy hush of night itself playing in harmony as the world slept. Pinocchio found the experience rather delightful. When the breeze blew gently through the pine needles, there wafted down the most luxurious fresh scent that seemed to naturally soothe the senses and relax the muscles. The pine cones, too, gave off an earthy, pleasing fragrance, and when Pinocchio inhaled deeply, he found himself wrapped up in a cozy holiday wonderland, reminding him of hot chocolate under the Christmas tree. Finally, the tree branches grew so dense and crowded over Pinocchio's head, he and Sleepless could barely see right in front of their noses. It was so dark that Pinocchio had to stop. "I'm so sleepy," said Pinocchio, his mouth opening for a big, round yawn. "And there's no light to find the way. Perhaps we should rest here until morning." The cricket yawned too. "I'm sleepier than I've been in a long while, but I'm still not quite weary enough to drift off. I'll see if I can remedy this darkness. Sleepless now let out a long, slow note, beckoning and affectionate. Almost immediately, Pinocchio started to see little green flashes of light out of the corner of his eye. Dozens of dancing flames began to appear, resembling embers from a campfire, floating and fluttering all around them. "Fireflies," Pinocchio whispered in amazement. "It's simply otherworldly." "But no, Pinocchio," corrected the cricket. "It's not otherworldly at all. It is entirely of this world, which is forever filled with endless wonder if you look with the right eyes." So, in the dark forest, Pinocchio turned his attention to his surroundings. He heard the rush of the river far away, beneath the rustle of the trees, drumming steadily like a drumline to a song. He smelled the wildflowers that grew on curling vines, spilling their sweet nectar for the butterflies and the bees. He felt the crisp air of the stars shining down, just like the light of the fireflies around him. Oh, magical fireflies, you don't need the sun or the moon to see in the dark. You carry your very own light inside you. You must have a glorious purpose. Please, do tell me, what is your purpose? The fireflies answered as eagerly as they could. A multitude of little lights twinkled and flickered, sparked and sparkled, on and off, so that the whole forest seemed to flash in unison. It was a breathtaking sight to behold. The fireflies encircled Pinocchio, twirling around him like 1,000 earthbound stars. No longer did Pinocchio feel he was in a forest near his home. Rather, he felt like he was flying in the heavens, surrounded by galaxies. "Well," surmised Pinocchio, "I suppose the firefly's purpose is to shine, but I'm not able to glow in the dark, so that must not be my purpose." By this time, the two companions had walked an awfully long way, so long that they finally emerged on the other side of the forest. They were happy to be out of the woods, but before them, standing powerfully against the deep black silk of the night sky, was a great hill of rolling grass, so high they couldn't see beyond it to the other side. "I've never seen so big a hill in my whole life, Mr. Sleepless," remarked Pinocchio. "Surely the Blue Fairy will be easy to find from such a high vantage point." "Yes, it must be quite the view from way up there," agreed the cricket. So the two weary travelers began trudging up the hill, which was no easy feat. Sleepless chirped out his song to keep the pace, and Pinocchio plodded and strained as he climbed, left and right, determined to get to the summit. As soon as they got to the highest point, they saw before them the most beautiful view of the entire valley. Pinocchio took in the spectacular vista with the astonished eyes of a real boy. He saw the moon sparkling on the black ribbon of river winding over the purple mountains, through the lush forest, eventually narrowing into the babbling brook flowing through town. "What a wonderful world," said Pinocchio. "A wonderful world it is," agreed the cricket, and the two friends reached their arms up to the sky. Just at that moment, the Blue Fairy appeared beside the cricket and the boy atop the grassy hill. "Yes, what a wonderful world indeed," echoed the Blue Fairy. "Blue Fairy," cheered Pinocchio when he set eyes on his favorite godmother. "I knew we would find you, me and my new friend Sleepless the cricket, that is. He's helped me come all this way to ask you to grant my wish." "Very nice to meet you, Cricket. And why have you come such a far way just to find me, sweet boy?" asked the Blue Fairy, as if she did not already know the answer. "Well, I had a wish, Fairy Godmother. I was tired of being a real boy, so my good friend Sleepless joined me, and I tiptoed through the cobblestone streets of the town, which were so empty and and still without people. Then I skipped along beside the babbling brook that flowed into a roaring river. After that, I trudged through the forest so thick I had to make my own path. And now I've climbed up this great hill to see this magnificent view." "I see," said the Blue Fairy, playing along. "And what is the wish you'd like me to grant?" "Well," continued Pinocchio, "I was confused about my purpose, Fairy Godmother, and I was going to wish for you to turn me back into a wooden puppet. But after meeting so many new friends tonight, well, I think I've gotten a few ideas. For example, the river flows, the flower blooms, the owl asks, and the firefly, and a boy can choose any of these or discover his own." "And what have you chosen as your pope?" Let's try that again. "And what have you chosen as your purpose, Pinocchio?" asked the Blue Fairy. "Well, when I was just a puppet, I was safe and sound, and things stayed the same, never changing much. I could play, but only when someone chose to play with me. I wasn't able to learn or explore or try new things. But now, as a real boy, I can go on adventures and make new friends, so I think that's my purpose, to simply live my life and to live it fully and happily and gratefully." The Blue Fairy and the Cricket looked at one another with great relief. "That's quite right," they both said. But Pinocchio wasn't finished. "Now that my adventure has come to an end, I've seen that I couldn't have done any of it without the help of my dear friend and guide, Sleepless the Cricket. So, if I can still have my wish, I'd like to thank Sleepless by making a wish for him. I wish for Sleepless to finally have the ability to fall fast asleep." After hearing Pinocchio's wise words, both Sleepless and the Blue Fairy had to wipe the proud tears from their eyes. Their little friend had grown up from a simple toy to a real boy, now ready to become a fine young man. So, with a graceful wave of her magic wand, the Blue Fairy blessed Sleepless the Cricket with the gift of sleep. And the three wonderful friends went back down the hill, back through the dense forest, back along the flowing river, and back over the cobblestone streets of town, back home to Geppetto. By the time they got back, Sleepless the Cricket was already snoring peacefully on Pinocchio's shoulder. And that, my dear friends, is where our adventure concludes. For that night, Pinocchio drifted off to a sound slumber, grateful for a friendship made, a lesson learned, and a purpose found. And right by his side, his loyal friend Sleepless enjoyed a soothing night's sleep, more sound and deep than a cricket could dream. And as you might have guessed, the way every good story ends, they all lived happily ever after. Et voila! So there it is, Pinocchio and the Sleepless Cricket. I hope you enjoyed reading that. I enjoyed reading it again, and it was really nice to kind of be able to read a little more at pace. One of the things that you might not know is that when we read these, we're forever getting direction from the other side. Slow down. Because as much as an actor especially, you want to read everything with the voices and you want to put all this intonation and inflection in it. What you want to hear when you're listening to these stories is just something very somnambulistic and slow and calm. And so it was nice to be able to read it a little bit more vibrantly. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe there were some little ones who were joining us tonight in their PJs, getting ready for bed if you're a little further east, and or if you're watching this tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get some wonderful, calm sleep during this. You know, it's a bit of a crazy time for all of us. We're all stuck at home and we're all doing our best to get through this worldwide crisis as calmly as we can. And so I send you peace and light and good sleep and calm, cool vibes.